Hello, everyone, and a very warm welcome. I'm absolutely thrilled to have you join me today. Are you ready to unlock a powerful secret to lasting and meaningful change in your life? What if I were to tell you that achieving just a 1% improvement each and every day could fundamentally transform your entire life trajectory? We're not talking about drastic overhauls or impossibly overwhelming goals here. Just small, manageable, and simple steps forward in a consistent manner. It might sound almost too easy or simplistic, right? But the remarkable truth is that this incremental approach is precisely how some of history's greatest masters, dedicated monks, and even the Buddha himself have diligently cultivated profound wisdom and attained spiritual enlightenment. Just imagine, for a moment, the compounding effect of nurturing qualities like inner peace, unwavering discipline, and profound mindfulness, little by little, day after day. Envision the transformative potential as these virtues gradually accumulate and deepen until, one day, you awaken and realize you have become fundamentally transformed into a better version of yourself. In this video presentation, we'll embark on an insightful exploration of 7 powerful and profound Buddhist lessons that convincingly demonstrate why gradual, incremental progress is not only an exceptionally effective strategy, but in fact, a truly life-altering paradigm shift. Stick with me and pay close attention, because by the end of our time together today, you'll gain a fresh and eye-opening perspective on the previously hidden power of those small, seemingly insignificant daily actions. You'll never look at them the same way again. Small changes compound into massive results. One of the most widespread and damaging misconceptions surrounding personal growth is the deeply ingrained belief that meaningful and lasting change necessitates large-scale, bold, and often dramatic actions. However, the ancient wisdom of Buddhism elegantly teaches us that genuine and sustainable progress is more often achieved through the steady accumulation of consistent, small steps. Imagine, if you will, a delicate teacup filled to the brim with muddy, murky water. If you were to abruptly attempt to remove all of the dirt and sediment at once, you would almost certainly spill a significant portion of the water and, in the process, create a bigger, more troublesome mess. But conversely, if you were to gently and deliberately add clean, clear water, a little at a time, drop by drop, the stubborn dirt and sediment would slowly but surely be washed away, ultimately leaving behind a pristine and clear liquid. The identical principle applies to the realm of personal transformation. If you impulsively try to change every facet of your life overnight, undertaking a radical and unfamiliar diet, committing to exercising for several hours each day, attempting to meditate for extended periods, you will quickly find yourself feeling overwhelmed, exhausted, and discouraged. As a result, you will very likely give up entirely. However, if you adopt a different approach, focusing instead on small, daily improvements that are easy to incorporate into your daily life, like drinking one more glass of water, taking a short and leisurely walk around your neighborhood, or practicing just a few minutes of focused meditation each morning, these relatively minor changes will begin to compound over time, yielding increasingly noticeable and significant results. Over the long haul, these small changes can lead to profound and enduring positive transformations. Buddhism, in its essence, emphasizes the paramount importance of cultivating patience and persistence in all aspects of our lives. The Buddha himself did not achieve spiritual enlightenment in a single day or even a single year. He dedicated many years to diligently practicing various forms of meditation, meticulously refining his understanding of the universe, and consistently making incremental improvements in his thoughts, words, and actions. If the Buddha had prematurely given up on his journey because progress seemed too slow, arduous, or unrewarding, his unparalleled wisdom and transformative teachings would never have reached the corners of the world, changing the lives of countless individuals. So remember and never forget that every small action you intentionally take today contributes meaningfully to the kind of person you will inevitably become in the near and distant future. Whether it involves consciously replacing a recurring negative thought with a more empowering and positive one, dedicating a few minutes to reading a thought-provoking book, or simply pausing to breathe deeply and mindfully when feeling overwhelmed by stress, each seemingly insignificant step matters greatly. Over the course of months and years, these incremental, consistent changes will gradually but inevitably shape your entire destiny, paving the path towards a happier, more fulfilling, and more meaningful life. Your identity is built through small wins. Many individuals falsely believe that a person's identity is an immutable and static characteristic of their being. They believe that you are either inherently disciplined or you are not, that you are either predisposed to be successful or doomed to fail, that you are either naturally peaceful or destined to live a turbulent life. However, the teachings of Buddhism powerfully assert that a person's identity is not a fixed or static thing. Rather, it is an evolving construct that is built, shaped, and reinforced through daily thoughts, actions, and decisions. To illustrate this point, think for a moment about a skilled sculptor meticulously carving an exquisite statue from a rough, unrefined block of stone. With each delicate and precise movement of their chisel, the sculptor carefully refines the jagged and uneven edges, revealing the beauty hidden within the stone. Over time, the distinct form and identity of the statue begin to take shape, slowly but surely emerging from the shapeless stone. At first, the sculptor may not observe any immediate, visible results from their efforts, but with unwavering commitment and consistent effort, a true masterpiece will ultimately emerge from the stone. Your own personal identity is shaped in a remarkably similar way. If you dedicate just 5 minutes each day to quiet and focused meditation, you may not immediately view yourself as a dedicated meditator. However, if you consistently practice meditation every day, even for a short period, you will slowly begin to embody the identity of a skilled and disciplined meditator. The very same principle applies to the cultivation of any desirable trait or virtue, be it patience, discipline, kindness, or wisdom. Instead of setting unrealistic goals of trying to completely transform who you are overnight, focus instead on achieving small, easily attainable wins that will build your confidence and momentum. For example, if you are able to respond calmly and rationally to a stressful situation, you actively reinforce the identity of someone who consistently remains composed and in control, even when facing pressure. If you intentionally choose to be kind and understanding towards someone who frequently frustrates you, you are actively training yourself to be a more compassionate and empathetic person. The core lesson here is remarkably simple. Who you ultimately become as a person is determined by what you repeatedly and consistently do, day in and day out. Every seemingly insignificant action is, in effect, a small vote for the kind of person you aspire to be. Habits are the foundation of long-term success. In Buddhist philosophy, the human mind is often compared to a meticulously cultivated garden. If you take conscious steps to plant positive seeds, such as seeds of kindness, patience, and mindfulness, your life will inevitably blossom with enduring peace and authentic happiness. Conversely, if you neglect your mental garden and allow weeds to take root and thrive, such as weeds of anger, negativity, and detrimental habits, these destructive forces will quickly overtake everything, choking out the positive seeds and leaving you with a barren and lifeless landscape. Ultimately, the key to living a truly fulfilling and rewarding life lies in what you intentionally cultivate each and every day. In essence, your habits are the very seeds that will determine the nature of your future. If you consistently and consciously practice mindfulness over a sustained period of time, you will cultivate a deeply peaceful and centered mind that is unperturbed by the chaos of the outside world. If you make a daily habit of practicing gratitude for the things you have in your life, your natural emotional state will gradually shift towards one of authentic joy and deep contentment. The Buddha himself taught that our thoughts, words, and actions, when consistently repeated over time, have the profound power to shape our destiny, charting the course of our lives in either a positive or negative direction. Consider the example of an individual who genuinely desires to become a more disciplined and focused person. If that person attempts to abruptly force themselves into an unfamiliar and overly strict routine overnight, they will more than likely fail to maintain the new habits for any significant length of time. However, if the same person starts small, with achievable goals, such as waking up just 5 minutes earlier each day, writing down their most important goals each morning, and consciously practicing self-control in small, everyday situations, they will gradually build the invaluable habit of discipline effortlessly over time. The most important secret to achieving lasting success and personal fulfillment is not rooted in making grand, sweeping resolutions that are difficult to uphold. Rather, it lies in consciously developing small, consistent daily habits that slowly accumulate over months and years, quietly transforming your life for the better. Much like a majestic tree grows slowly but steadily from a tiny seed, your ultimate success and fulfillment will be built one deliberate habit at a time. The power of marginal gains. The remarkable principle of marginal gains is a powerful concept that emphasizes the seemingly counterintuitive idea that small, incremental improvements, when consistently applied over time, can yield truly extraordinary results. At first glance, the idea of improving by just 1% each day may seem relatively insignificant or inconsequential, but in reality, these seemingly tiny changes compound exponentially over time, ultimately leading to transformative and groundbreaking outcomes. In the context of Buddhism, this principle is perfectly aligned with the core tenets of the path of gradual enlightenment, which teaches that small, deliberate actions and consistent effort can lead to profound inner transformation. We often falsely assume that significant success, profound wisdom, or lasting happiness comes in the form of one momentous grand breakthrough. But this is almost never the case. In reality, meaningful and sustainable growth happens slowly, steadily, and incrementally, much like a towering tree doesn't reach its impressive height overnight. Instead, it gradually strengthens its roots, builds its trunk, and grows its branches, one step at a time. Human transformation follows this same deliberate principle. The Buddha himself didn't magically achieve enlightenment in an instant. Rather, he dedicated many years to meticulously refining his thoughts, diligently mastering his emotions, and carefully deepening his understanding of the human condition through the dedicated practice of small, daily exercises in mindfulness and meditation. To gain a better understanding of how marginal gains actually work in practice, imagine a dedicated musician who is determined to learn to play the piano. If that musician were to sit down at the piano on the very first day and impulsively attempt to play an entire song perfectly, they would likely become immediately frustrated, discouraged, and ultimately feel like a failure. Their fingers would not move fast enough, they would hit all the wrong notes, and they may even begin to erroneously convince themselves that they simply do not possess the natural talent to play the piano. However, if this same musician were to instead commit to achieving just a 1% improvement each day, learning just a few new notes, methodically strengthening their hand-eye coordination, and practicing just the most basic melodies, they would undoubtedly make slow but steady progress over time. Just 1 month later, they would already be capable of playing full songs with growing confidence and skill. And just 1 year later, they might even be performing for an audience with apparent ease. The key to their success is unwavering consistency, not fleeting intensity. This very same principle applies to nearly every aspect of life. Let's examine the specific example of physical health. Many individuals genuinely want to get fit and healthy, but they mistakenly believe that they must make a series of dramatic lifestyle changes all at once, such as embarking on highly restrictive diets, exercising strenuously for hours each day, and completely overhauling their familiar routines. This approach often leads to burnout, deep frustration, and ultimately a complete relapse into their previous habits. But what if they simply focused on achieving just a 1% improvement in their health each day, drinking just 1 extra glass of water, stretching their muscles for just 5 minutes, walking just a little more than usual? These small steps may not seem significant at first, but over time, they will add up to something remarkable. Just 1 year later, this individual would have achieved an entirely different level of physical health, fitness, and energy. This identical principle applies to our mental and emotional well-being as well. If an individual genuinely wishes to become a more patient, calm, and understanding person, they don't need to suddenly force themselves to remain perfectly calm and rational in every situation they encounter. Instead, they can simply focus on making small, incremental improvements each day such as consciously taking a slow and deliberate deep breath before reacting to an upsetting situation, pausing thoughtfully before speaking in anger, or practicing quiet and focused meditation for just a few minutes each day. Over time, these small acts of intentionality will accumulate, and what once felt like a tremendous effort will gradually become second nature. An individual who consciously improves their patience by just 1% each day will, over the course of 1 year, fundamentally transform their ability to remain calm and composed in even the most stressful and chaotic situations. Buddhism emphatically teaches us to fully embrace the process of slow and steady self-improvement, rather than anxiously seeking instant and fleeting perfection. Many people falsely feel discouraged when they don't see immediate results from their efforts, but it's essential to remember that genuine progress often happens beneath the surface before it becomes readily visible. To effectively illustrate this point, consider the fascinating example of a bamboo plant. For the first few years of its life, the bamboo plant spends its energy growing its roots deep underground, seemingly making little or no progress towards vertical growth. Then, almost suddenly and unexpectedly, it begins to grow rapidly, shooting up dozens of feet in just a few weeks. This is how marginal gains truly work in life. You may not readily notice the changes that are occurring in your life right away, but if you resolutely commit to consistently making small improvements, your ongoing growth will eventually become undeniable. When you fully embrace the often overlooked power of marginal gains, your success effectively becomes inevitable. You will no longer feel consumed by the debilitating pressure of perfection, allowing you to instead focus on the rewarding journey of self-improvement, rather than obsessing over a distant and elusive destination. Every great achievement, whether in the realm of spirituality, in the pursuit of a fulfilling career, in the achievement of optimal health, or in the building of genuine relationships, begins with a meticulously calculated series of small, intentional steps. Instead of feeling discouraged by how far you still have to go, focus intently on improving just a little bit each day. Over time, these tiny improvements will gradually lead to extraordinary results that you could scarcely imagine at the outset of your journey. Success comes from mastering the process, not chasing perfection. One of the most significant obstacles hindering personal progress is the widespread belief that we must be perfect from the very beginning. Many individuals hesitate to adopt new habits, start meaningful projects, or fearlessly pursue their ambitions simply because they are afraid of making inevitable mistakes or not performing flawlessly. However, the ancient teachings of Buddhism emphasize that excessive attachment to perfection ultimately leads to unnecessary suffering. The more we fixate on achieving an idealized or perfect outcome, the more we set ourselves up for perpetual feelings of frustration, self-doubt, and disappointment. The simple truth is that perfection is, in reality, a persistent illusion. No one ever truly masters a complex skill, attains profound wisdom, or effortlessly achieves lasting success overnight. Even history's most accomplished and celebrated individuals, from talented artists and visionary spiritual leaders to highly skilled athletes and innovative entrepreneurs, all started out as relative beginners in their respective fields. The Buddha himself did not magically achieve enlightenment in a single moment. Instead, he devoted years to diligently meditating, thoughtfully reflecting, and methodically refining his understanding of the deepest truths of human existence. If the Buddha had stubbornly waited until he felt perfectly prepared before sharing his profound wisdom with the world, his groundbreaking teachings would likely have never reached beyond his immediate circle, profoundly altering the course of history. This empowering lesson is applicable to virtually all aspects of daily life. Consider the simple act of learning a new foreign language, for instance. Many prospective language learners often feel self-conscious or embarrassed to speak a new language because they intensely fear making mistakes and appearing foolish. They yearn to speak with fluent and articulate grace right away, without having to patiently endure the slow and often awkward process of learning a new language. However, true mastery of a new language inevitably comes from diligently committing to consistent practice, intentionally embracing small and inevitable mistakes, consciously learning from those mistakes, and steadily improving one's skills over time. The same principle is equally applicable to learning any complex skill, whether it involves learning to play a musical instrument, mastering the art of effective writing, becoming a skilled cook, or even cultivating a consistent practice of mindful meditation. If you place the majority of your focus on diligently mastering the process of learning, rather than chasing an unattainable ideal of perfection, meaningful progress becomes effortless and surprisingly natural. Another common example is the realm of physical fitness. Many individuals enthusiastically embark on a new workout routine with the mistaken idea that they must meticulously adhere to a perfect diet, flawlessly implement the best training plan, and maintain unyielding discipline at all times. However, when these individuals inevitably miss a scheduled workout or consume something considered unhealthy, they immediately feel as if they have hopelessly failed and prematurely give up on their fitness journey altogether. The reality is that small and occasional inconsistencies are largely inconsequential in the long run. What genuinely matters is that you resolutely stay committed to the overall process of improving your fitness. Instead of striving for a rigidly defined perfect routine, simply focus on showing up each day and consciously making small improvements. Buddhism strongly emphasizes the critical importance of remaining consciously present in the journey of self-improvement, rather than being obsessively fixated on a distant and elusive destination. When you dedicate an excessive amount of your attention to achieving a specific end goal, you are likely to become rigidly attached to an anticipated outcome that may or may not actually come to fruition. However, when you instead focus on diligently mastering the process of achieving your goal, whether it's cultivating a consistent practice of meditation, diligently practicing self-discipline, regularly performing acts of kindness, or steadily developing any other valuable skill, you will almost certainly improve steadily over time. This mindset brings with it a profound sense of inner peace, because you will no longer view your inevitable mistakes as irreparable failures. Instead, you will recognize them as invaluable learning experiences that offer critical insights. To vividly illustrate this point, consider the image of a talented sculptor patiently working on a large block of unrefined marble. If the sculptor is solely focused on bringing to life the final masterpiece, they may easily become impatient, frustrated, and disillusioned with their work. However, if the sculptor instead learns to fully enjoy the methodical process of shaping the stone, making necessary adjustments, and skillfully refining the finer details, they will not only ultimately create a stunning and beautiful sculpture, but will also develop a deep and enduring appreciation for their chosen craft. The very same principle applies to the path of profound personal growth and self-improvement. If you sincerely want to become a more consistently mindful person, do not obsess over trying to remain perfectly present in every moment of your life. Instead, simply practice mindfulness just a little more each day. If you wholeheartedly want to become a more consistently disciplined individual, do not impose on yourself the unrealistic expectation of being flawlessly consistent in all of your habits. Instead, simply focus intently on steadily maintaining your progress, one step at a time. Success in its truest and most enduring form springs not from an elusive state of perfection, but rather from unwavering persistence. The most important question to ask yourself is not, am I performing this perfectly? Rather, it is, am I performing this consistently? The more wholehearted commitment you demonstrate to the process of ongoing self-improvement, the better you will inevitably become, and the extraordinary results you seek will naturally take care of themselves. By consciously releasing the pressure to be perfect at all times, you freely grant yourself the permission to gradually grow, eagerly learn, and meaningfully succeed with effortless grace. The ultimate goal is not to impossibly attain an unattainable standard of absolute flawlessness. Rather, it is to actively cultivate an unwavering commitment to becoming just a little bit better each and every day, one deliberate step at a time. Overcoming resistance becomes easier. One of the most significant and ubiquitous challenges encountered in the pursuit of meaningful personal growth is the often overwhelming presence of resistance, the powerful internal force that actively conspires to keep you safely confined within the familiar confines of your comfort zone. Resistance is that insidious voice inside your head that constantly tells you, "I'll start tomorrow," "I don't feel like doing it today," or "What's the point in even trying?" Buddhism teaches us that the experience of encountering resistance is an inherent and inevitable aspect of the human condition. However, Buddhism also clarifies that encountering resistance is not something that should automatically prevent us from moving fearlessly forward. Instead, it emphasizes that resistance should be thoughtfully understood, intentionally acknowledged, and gradually overcome. In the teachings of Buddhism, suffering arises most often from our clinging too tightly to the familiar comforts of our existing life and actively avoiding any experience of discomfort or challenge. When we stubbornly resist the inevitable changes that come our way, it's often because we are rigidly attached to what we already know, even if those habits and beliefs are no longer serving our highest good. Our minds are inherently wired to seek out safety, security, and predictability in our daily routines, and anything that is perceived as new, unfamiliar, or uncertain is automatically interpreted as a potential threat. This underlying tendency is precisely why starting a new meditation practice, waking up earlier each morning, or committing to any new habit of daily self-improvement can feel so psychologically difficult. Our minds quickly spring to action, inventing a myriad of ingenious excuses to actively keep us right where we are. Despite its imposing nature, however, resistance does not have to be an impenetrable barrier. In fact, it can be an insightful resource that we can intentionally work with. Instead of fruitlessly trying to combat resistance with sheer brute willpower, the teachings of Buddhism instruct us to calmly acknowledge the presence of resistance without judgment, and then consciously take small, easily manageable steps forward in the direction we wish to travel. The more we gently expose ourselves to mild feelings of discomfort in manageable doses, the weaker the force of resistance becomes over time. To effectively illustrate this point, imagine a person who genuinely wants to incorporate the practice of quiet meditation into their daily routine. At first, simply sitting still in silence for just 5 minutes may feel like a tremendous struggle. Their minds will actively resist the act of sitting still, filling them with a constant barrage of distractions, convincing them that they simply don't have the time to meditate, or persuading them that they are somehow not doing it correctly. However, if that individual commits to consistently sitting in silence for just 5 minutes each day, something incredibly interesting begins to occur. By the second week of diligently practicing the habit, their mind begins to adapt and adjust to this new reality, and the act of meditation starts to feel noticeably easier. By the end of the 3rd month, sitting in silence for 5 minutes feels almost effortless, and they naturally experience a genuine desire to extend their meditation practice. This same empowering principle is equally applicable to virtually every area of life. Think, for instance, about physical exercise. If a person who has never formally exercised before suddenly attempts to run 5 miles with little or no preparation, their body and mind will automatically resist such an extreme undertaking. They will likely experience such activity as overwhelming, physically painful, and intensely discouraging. However, if that same individual starts more gradually by walking briskly for just 10 minutes each day, they effortlessly bypass much of the resistance that previously held them back. Over time, that initial walk of just 10 minutes will gradually become easier and more enjoyable, and they will naturally be motivated to increase their effort without any sense of internal struggle. Effectively overcoming resistance is remarkably similar to diligently training a muscle. The more you consciously do something, the easier it eventually becomes. At the very beginning, any new habit or conscious change feels awkward and unnatural. However, with consistent and dedicated effort, that habit will quickly integrate itself into your daily routine. The key to successfully integrating a new habit into your life is to start small and steadily maintain your consistency. Buddhism also teaches that a great deal of unnecessary suffering arises from our chronic resistance to the underlying reality of our daily lives. Often, we unintentionally make certain circumstances far more difficult to navigate simply because we persistently resist them on a mental and emotional level. For instance, if you consistently view the act of waking up early each morning as a dreadful chore that you are forced to endure, you will likely experience a sense of struggle and discomfort every single morning. However, if you make a conscious shift in your mindset and begin to view the act of waking up early as a precious opportunity to cultivate inner peace, enhance your productivity, and set the tone for a positive and rewarding day, the act of waking up early will quickly become significantly easier and more enjoyable. The central lesson here is that resistance is both a normal and inevitable aspect of the human experience, but it is by no means an insurmountable obstacle or a permanent state of being. Every time you deliberately push yourself to move beyond your comfort zone, even in the smallest of ways, you actively weaken the power of resistance and steadily strengthen your capacity to confidently take decisive action. Over time, the actions that once felt so difficult and unnatural will gradually become second nature. If you resolutely commit to the idea of achieving just a 1% improvement each day, the force of resistance will steadily fade, and you will slowly but surely become someone who effortlessly takes intentional action with calm and unwavering ease. The key, ultimately, is not to passively wait for momentary bursts of fleeting motivation to strike. Rather, it is to cultivate a reliable habit of intentionally moving forward in the direction of your dreams, even if those steps are small and seemingly insignificant. In the end, the path to meaningful and sustainable success does not involve somehow avoiding resistance altogether. Rather, it entails intentionally learning to effectively work with resistance as an insightful guide, moving forward one calculated step at a time. Time becomes your greatest ally. In today's fast-paced and frenetic world, many individuals desperately seek instant results, hoping to lose weight in just a few days, master a highly complex skill in a few weeks, or achieve significant financial success in a matter of months. However, the wisdom of Buddhism compels us to view time through a different lens, not as an opponent to race against, but as a powerful and invaluable ally that, when skillfully harnessed, can unlock the doors to extraordinary transformation. Too often, individuals become quickly frustrated and disillusioned when they don't immediately experience dramatic progress in their endeavors. They enthusiastically commit to a new habit for just a few days, and when they don't detect any significant changes, they impulsively give up. This deeply ingrained impatience stems from a fundamental misunderstanding of how genuine and sustainable personal growth actually functions. In Buddhism, everything in the universe is understood to be flowing rhythmically, influenced by natural cycles and patterns. Much like a magnificent tree cannot possibly reach its full height in just a single day, we too cannot achieve a state of lasting wisdom, enduring peace, or genuine success overnight. To further illustrate this point, consider the captivating example of a bamboo plant. When a bamboo seed is intentionally planted in the earth, almost nothing seems to happen for years. The bamboo seed remains hidden beneath the surface, secretly developing a strong and expansive root system, patiently awaiting the right moment to emerge. Then, almost suddenly and unexpectedly, the bamboo plant begins to rapidly shoot up dozens of feet in just a few weeks, astonishing all who witness its remarkable growth. This inspiring illustration serves as a helpful metaphor for how genuine long-term progress inevitably functions. In most circumstances, you may not immediately observe visible results from your consistent and dedicated efforts. However, each small and often unseen effort is actively strengthening your inner foundation, preparing you for future success. When the opportune moment arrives, your outward growth will spontaneously and noticeably manifest. This essential principle applies to virtually every area of life. Imagine two individuals who both share the same heartfelt desire to significantly improve themselves, but who approach the task in fundamentally different ways. One individual is primarily motivated by the desire for fast results. This person impulsively attempts to make a series of extreme changes, engaging in hours of intense physical workouts, meditating for extended periods each day, and implementing a number of drastic and unfamiliar lifestyle changes. Within just a few weeks, they feel utterly exhausted, overwhelmed, and ultimately decide to give up altogether. The second individual intentionally adopts a very different approach. They consciously commit to the idea of achieving just a 1% improvement in their overall well-being each and every day. They thoughtfully exercise for just 10 minutes, meditate quietly for just 5 minutes, and make small and deliberate adjustments to their daily routine. At first, their progress seems slow and almost imperceptible. However, over time, these small and consistent efforts quietly compound, and just 1 year later, they are transformed into a completely different person. Time, ultimately, generously rewards those who are genuinely patient. If you consistently commit yourself to steadily making small daily improvements, you will inevitably reach a point where meaningful success becomes an unstoppable force. Far too many individuals drastically underestimate what they can reasonably achieve in a single year, or even in a 5-year period, simply because they place far too much emphasis on achieving immediate results. However, if you deliberately choose to trust in the long-term process of self-improvement and consistently stay the course, time will enthusiastically work in your favor, amplifying your sincere efforts and delivering far greater rewards than you previously thought possible. Buddhism teaches the critical importance of remaining grounded in the present moment and cultivating a deep sense of patience. Anxiously rushing towards success will often lead to burnout and feelings of profound disappointment. However, when you intentionally embrace time as a supportive ally, you will naturally cultivate a mindset of patience, resilience, and unwavering optimism. You will no longer feel compelled to see significant results immediately because you will inherently trust that every small and seemingly insignificant action is actively building something far greater than you can possibly imagine. Consider, for instance, an individual who is earnestly committed to learning how to play a musical instrument. If that individual consistently practices for just a little while each day, they will steadily improve their musical skills, even if they don't experience any noticeable signs of progress. However, if they impatiently give up too soon, they will never see the impressive results that would have inevitably accrued. The very same underlying principle is equally applicable to cultivating optimal physical health, building genuine relationships, achieving lasting career growth, and fostering meaningful spiritual development. Time is consistently working behind the scenes, subtly amplifying our efforts and shaping our eventual outcomes. The empowering lesson is remarkably simple. Cultivate deep trust in the natural process of growth and be patient with yourself as you steadily move forward. The changes you actively make today may seem relatively small, but over the course of months and years, they will lead to truly remarkable transformations exceeding all that you can now imagine. Instead of viewing time as a relentless adversary that is relentlessly pushing you towards an inevitable end, learn instead to view it as a powerful force that generously helps you to grow, both slowly and steadily, as well as deeply and profoundly. If you resolutely commit yourself to improving just 1% each day, time will inevitably become your greatest ally, and your meaningful success will ultimately become inevitable. Every great personal transformation inevitably begins with a single, intentional step forward. When you wholeheartedly embrace the extraordinary power of achieving just a 1% improvement each day, you align yourself with the timeless wisdom of Buddhism, which has enriched the lives of countless people throughout history. Patience, presence, and mindful effort, when combined, will always lead to profound and transformative change. Which of these invaluable lessons resonated most deeply with you today? Let me know your thoughts and reflections in the comments section below. Also, if you sincerely found value and insight in this video presentation, please consider subscribing to my channel today. To receive ongoing access to additional content on topics like ancient wisdom, mindfulness practices, and practical methods for achieving lasting personal growth. Your generous support will sincerely help me to create more informative content like this in the future. Until we meet again, remember to stay present, stay mindful, and keep growing each and every day.